who's been living here for past 10 years, and he wants to share his story and his thoughts.
Hello everybody, thank you for inviting me to speak. So I want to start by first acknowledging the pain and suffering that Israel and Israelis have been causing the Palestinians for too many years. And to honor this, I want to share an excerpt from a poem by the Palestinian national poet Mahmoud Darwish to my mother, who wrote this poem while being held captive in an Israeli prison. أحوني لخبز أمي. I miss my mother's bread. وقهوة أمي. And my mother's coffee. ولمسة أمي. And my mother's caress. وتكبر في طفولة يوما على صدري يومي. And childhood grows inside of me day after day. وآشك عمري لأني إذا مت واخجل من دمع أمي. And I cherish my life, because if I died, I would be ashamed of my mother's tears. My name is Asher Lev. I'm the son of Gidon Lev, a 90-year-old Holocaust survivor, originally from the Czech Republic, here in Europe. He and the rest of my closest family are Israelis, living in Israel right now. My father came to Israel in the late 1950s with the Zionist movement. He was told that it is a land without people for a people without a land. I myself grew up in Israel and left 10 years ago to come to live here because I felt I needed to distance myself from the violence and aggression that permeates life in Israel-Palestine. I'm married to Irina from Lithuania and have two young boys, Moshe and Spiruski. When I was 18, while still living in Israel, I refused to serve in the army. In 2009, after another one of Israel's bloody military campaigns in Gaza, I decided to study Islam, Arabic, and Middle Eastern studies, trying to bridge the distance between cultures. Israel has and still is enacting ethnic cleansing and genocide against the Palestinian people. It would be easier to mention that it's just the crazy right-wing and fascist government led by Benjamin Netanyahu that is responsible for all of this. But I don't think this is true. In Israel, it seems like an overwhelming majority supports the most fundamental narratives of Zionism, of which the injustice towards the Palestinians is based upon. The power of the Zionist discourse is founded on fear and the trauma of persecution. It promotes the idea that the Jewish people cannot be safe without their own land and their own army. But in reality, more Jews have been killed in Israel than anywhere else in the world since the establishment of Israel in 1948. I cannot survey the many complexities of the situation and the different pragmatic solutions that people are proposing. One-state solution, two-state solution. Instead, I like to dream of a peaceful future in a post-Israel world. The question I ask myself and others is, do Jews really need to have their own land in order to live in safety and in peace, retaining their spiritual, cultural, and communal life? Is the struggle with the Palestinians for the land really, really worth it? For the past 2,000 years, the Jews have been a stateless people. Yes, there have been persecutions with the Holocaust, highlighting, quote, the Jewish problem of being a weak and vulnerable other who functions as a scapegoat for violent human tendencies. I heard my father repeat many times in disdain that when the Nazis were knocking at our doors, the rabbis simply told their communities to keep on praying, as if God himself was going to reach down and save them. To this he says, never again. And most Israelis would echo this message and say that we cannot go back to being a defenseless religious Jew. In other words, Israel and its strong army are supposed to be the way how we don't go back to being who we were. Contrary to this view, I wish to honor and respect the choice of my Jewish pacifist ancestors. Prayer and art, as a secular form of prayer, are more important elements for upholding and nourishing a spiritual, communal, and cultural life, even if that community is under constant physical threat. The violence with which Israel is guarding its sovereignty is corrupting the very Jewish identity that it is meant to protect. Zionist Israel is largely a racist, materialist country that normalizes fear and violence because people there have become attached to power, material possessions, and the idea that no Jew can be saved without the existence of Israel as it is today, a land primarily for the Jews. And most people simply believe that they don't have any other choice, they have nowhere else to go. But let's imagine for a second that Jewish Israelis needed to leave Israel-Palestine. Could the Jewish people survive this historical event and even thrive in its aftermath? Is it enough to look into the headlines of Jewish history and realize that yes, of course we can? For thousands of years, Judaism evolved as a kind of nomadic spirituality, being able to quickly set up thriving communities anywhere in the world. Maybe what we need today is a second Exodus. Could it be that this time around the Israelis are slaves to the dream of Zionism and our democratically elected government has become a bunch of pharaohs? And maybe now it is simply the Palestinians' turn to set up a national home for themselves in the Holy Land. In any case, to the tribe I was born into, I propose to lay down our weapons, liberate ourselves from nationalism altogether, and start praying for peace like we know how to do so well. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Oy, 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 mi melech Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Oy, 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 mi melech Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Salam alaikum, shalom alechem, peace for all, free Palestine.